Hashtag the patient way. Eleanor sat in the Veterans Center library, helping catalog old training manuals and photographs. At 61, she volunteered here twice a week, finding purpose in preserving these stories for younger generations. A photograph slipped from between the pages of a manual. It showed two men shaking hands, one in Marine Corps fatigues, one in British camouflage. Both were smiling, genuine warmth in their eyes. "That's a good one," said Harold, the center's director, walking over. He was 68, a former Marine himself. That was taken in 1987. Norway, I think. "What's the story?" Eleanor asked, settling into a chair. Harold eased himself down beside her, his knees creaking slightly. There was a joint training exercise. Marksmanship competition. Some of the younger Marines were pretty confident. You know how it is at that age. They figured they'd show the British team how things were done. Eleanor smiled. She'd raised 3 sons. She knew about youthful confidence. "The British brought their sniper team," Harold continued. "Older fellows mostly, quiet types. They didn't talk much about what they could do. They just listened when our guys talked about speed, about quick response times." "And what happened?" Eleanor asked. Harold chuckled softly. "Well, the Marines were fast. Very fast. They were proud of how quickly they could acquire targets, take shots, move positions. And they were skilled. Don't misunderstand me. They were genuinely talented." He paused, looking at the photograph with a distant expression. "But the British team, they showed everyone something different. They showed patience. They took their time, read the wind, understood the environment. Where our Marines were thinking in seconds, the British snipers were thinking in minutes, sometimes hours." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Different approaches." "Exactly," Harold said. "And here's what shocked everyone, including me. I was there as an observer. The British team's accuracy was extraordinary. Not because they were faster or stronger, but because they waited for the perfect moment. They understood something our young Marines hadn't learned yet. Sometimes patience is more powerful than speed." "How did the Marines respond?" Eleanor asked. Harold's face softened with memory. "That's the beautiful part. After the initial surprise, after getting past their pride, they asked to learn. The British sergeant, man named Graham, spent the next week teaching them, showing them how to read terrain differently, how to breathe, how to wait." He pointed to the photograph. "That's Graham and one of our Marines, Michael, on the last day. They became good friends. Michael told me later that Graham changed how he thought about everything, not just marksmanship. About patience, about observing before acting, about respecting wisdom that comes from experience." Eleanor studied the photograph more closely. Both men looked genuinely happy, the kind of contentment that comes from mutual respect. "You know what Graham told Michael?" Harold asked. "He said, 'Speed has its place, son, but wisdom knows when to be still.'" Eleanor felt that truth settle in her heart. That applies to so much of life, doesn't it? "It does," Harold agreed. "I think about it often now that I'm older. We spend so much of our youth rushing, trying to prove ourselves quickly. But the most important things, relationships, understanding, real skill, they require patience." That evening, Eleanor shared the story with her book club. They were discussing a novel about mentorship and learning. "What strikes me about this story," Eleanor said, "is that the initial confidence wasn't wrong exactly. Those young Marines were talented, but they hadn't yet learned that there are different kinds of strength." Her friend Judith, a retired teacher, nodded enthusiastically. "I saw this in my classroom for 30 years. The students who rushed through everything weren't always the ones who understood the material best. The ones who took their time, who observed carefully, they often had the deepest understanding. My grandson is like that." Another member, Louise, added. "He's 7. Everyone else rushes through the playground, but he stops to watch insects, to look at how tree branches move in the wind. I used to worry he was too slow. Now I see he's learning things the rushing children miss." Eleanor smiled. "That's exactly it. That British sergeant wasn't teaching those Marines to be slow. He was teaching them to be observant, to understand when patience serves you better than speed." After the meeting, a younger woman named Rachel approached Eleanor. "I needed to hear that story today," she said quietly. "I'm 52, just started a new career after my divorce. Everyone around me seems to be moving so fast, accomplishing so much. I've been feeling like I'm behind. Eleanor took her hand gently. My dear, patience isn't the same as being slow. It's about moving with intention, with awareness. You're not behind. You're learning, observing, building something solid. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. I keep telling myself to hurry up, to catch up, but maybe I need to trust my own pace. Exactly, Eleanor said warmly. Trust your timing, trust that observation and patience have their own wisdom. Walking home under the evening sky, Eleanor thought about Graham and Michael, about young Marines learning from experienced snipers, about the way wisdom often comes from unexpected places and patient moments. She thought about her own life. The times she'd rushed and regretted it, the times she'd been patient and found grace in the waiting. Her late husband George used to garden. He'd spend hours just watching the plants, understanding their rhythms. Eleanor, he'd say, you can't rush growth. You can only create conditions for it and then be patient. She'd thought he was just talking about tomatoes. Now she understood he was talking about everything that mattered. The next week, Eleanor brought the photograph to be properly framed. She placed it in the Veterans Center lobby with a small caption, different skills, shared respect. Norway, 1987. Harold saw it and smiled. Perfect. That's what people need to see. Not competition, but collaboration. Not speed versus patience, but understanding when each has its place. Eleanor nodded. And most importantly, that being surprised by someone else's excellence isn't defeat. It's an invitation to grow. That evening, she wrote in her journal, something she'd been doing for 40 years. Today I learned again that patience is not passive. It's an active choice to observe, to understand, to wait for the right moment. Whether in marksmanship, gardening, relationships, or life itself, rushing isn't always strength. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to be still. Outside her window, the stars appeared one by one, patient and eternal, each waiting its turn to shine.